Hello friends, Tracy.bish here, your Stampin' Up demonstrator in Central Victoria, Australia. Welcome to Tracy's Sunday Challenge. It is Sunday the 30th of October and this week's theme is a really fun one. We are doing Christmas cards with non-traditional Christmas stamp sets. So I'm using the wonderful Happier Than Happy stamp set. I'm also using the accommodating dies for that set. Okay, so starting off with crumb cake card base. I've also got pieces of crumb cake, mossy meadow and gold foil for our decorating. We're going to start off with our card base to start with. We are using both crumb cake as well as mossy meadow to stamp with. And this is a little Christmas tree that we're going to be using. Now, as soon as I actually purchased this bundle from the annual catalogue, I knew straight away I wanted to do a Christmas card with it. And I love how this turned out. The browns, the greens, the golds is so cute. So we're just going to randomly stamp all the way around with this small Christmas tree using our crumb cake ink. I'm using just first generation, but as you can see when I move over to my mossy meadow piece, we're going to do some generational stamping there. I'm also going to come back through with my blending brushes and just ink blend around the edges of our card base, but I'll come back and do that. Moving on to the mossy meadow card, I've got my mossy meadow ink. And there's a little leaf stamp set in that stamp set. We're going to stamp that randomly all the way around, and I'm doing first layer, second layer and third layer of stamping. So we've got a little bit of variation of colours of ink there, which I think is really great. We're also going to trick this up a little bit, this piece of mossy meadow. I'm going to run a pair of my old scissors just along the edges and really burr that edges up. This gives the best dimension, and I'm going to do more dimension on our other piece of crumb cake there. So we're just running it along the edges. It does make a little bit of a mess, but it's not that bad. And I just love how much it sort of really creates a lot of texture and feel to your front of your card. I'm also using not only the Happier Than Happy bundle, but I also have the Labels of Glow dies. These are in the mini catalogue. It is a really great label set that goes with a great stamp set. So maybe get them both. But if you're looking for a sentiment stamp set for Christmas, highly recommend that bundle. So here we have our piece of crumb cake card base or crumb cake card. I'm just using my spritzers there and adding water to it and then crumpling it up. This gives the best texture. It looks like you've put it through an embossing folder, and you want it quite wet to be able to be malleable. I'm also bringing in my heat tool. This is just to dry out any of that moisture from that card base. And the heat tool really makes light work of getting rid of all that moisture. Our next piece that we're going to start working on is our stamping and our die cutting. We're using both the large Christmas tree die, I'm going to call it a Christmas tree, pine tree maybe, and the smaller one, and we're die cutting those with both mossy meadow and gold foil. So really great. We're also using the label from that Labels of Glow die set for our sentiment piece. All right, so how great is that texture there that we have? So here I am bringing back in my ink blending brushes and just going around the edge. You can add as much or as little as you like. It just adds a little bit more texture. Like there is a ton of texture on this card. I also recommend, even though I didn't do it, maybe going over that piece that we've just crumpled as well to give that a little bit of colour, even just on the edges. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my bear stamp and we're going to stamp that with the crumb cake ink. And I think I left this in, but the first stamp turned out terrible. Then I stamped it again on the opposite side and I still didn't like it. I did the second generation stamping, didn't like that. Went and got a whole new piece of cardstock there, and it stamped perfectly. So I think it was just a bit of maybe something on the stamp, or I'm not really sure, but whatever happened to it, it didn't stamp as well as I liked. So the third time it worked like a charm. Alright, so you can find all the measurements for this card over my blog. There is a link to that blog post in the description of this video. If you would like to purchase any of the supplies that I'm using on today's card, you certainly can in my online store. There's a link to that online store in the description. Please use the hostess code for this month, and I have some wonderful benefits for shopping with me. I have a handmade card that I send out to you in the mail. I also have a bundle tutorial that I can email through. And if you spend over $100 using that host code, and that is in product before postage, you'll also receive the Simple Sweet Stampers tutorial bundle for the month as well. So a few great little benefits for shopping with me. So here we are, we're just doing all our die cutting with our cut and emboss machine. This has been the best die cutting machine that I've ever owned. I've owned a Big Shot, and I will say this machine it cuts out so superbly every time, even if your dies are super intricate. So I really recommend that. We're going to actually pop this through a couple of times just to make sure that we have all our pieces, because we do need 2 of the large pine trees in the mossy meadow as well as the small one. So once we have those all ready to go, really the only other stamping we do have is our sentiment piece. And of course I cannot add gold to a card without gold embossing. So the sentiment we're going to heat emboss with the gold. So I'm just running my embossing buddy over the top of that die cut. Because I've had my fingers all over it, you just want to make sure that you're getting rid of any oils that were on your hand, because otherwise those powders will stick. So we're using Versamark ink. This is a clear sticky ink, perfect for heat embossing. And then I have my gold powder. This is part of the metallics collection of embossing powders in Stampin' Up! Catalogue, and I'm just going to hit that with the heat tool until it melts and becomes nice and shiny. So it doesn't take long really at all. You want to make sure that you're not burning your hands though. So if you do have tweezers, maybe use your tweezers to save your fingers. Alright, so we can start popping all this together. We're going to layer our 2 matting pieces together, and I'm using tear and tape because we've added water, we have crumpled it up, so there's a ton of texture there. So I always find that tear and tape is probably the best one for that. You could use your liquid glue, you just might have to hang on to it just that little bit longer because there is so much texture there. I'm going to secure that down just on an angle on that mossy meadow piece, and then we can start adding all our extra pieces. Sometimes I have terrible trouble with that tear and tape getting those backing adhesive bits off, but if you have a pokey tool, you could also use your take your pick tool. That works well as well. And we're bringing in that gold ribbon there as well, and I'm going to be securing that to the back of these pieces that we're using now. Because I've got it on an angle, it's not going to stay in place without securing it. So we've got these 2 pieces on an angle, and then our bow with our ribbon is also on the angle, so just makes it a little bit hard. It's not going straight across or anything like that. Alright, so here is this gorgeous ribbon. This has been around for a couple of catalogues, so you may have it in your stash, which is fantastic. I think gold and silver at Christmas time is a must. I do love my metallics for Christmas. So here we've just attached it to the back. I'm going to attach it down the bottom as well, so we're keeping it in place. And then we're going to do our little knot down the very bottom, and that just peeks out from where the bear is. So you just want to do a nice tight little knot to get that into place, which is super easy with this ribbon. It's a really gorgeous ribbon. Okay, so now we can start adding our pine trees or Christmas trees to the back of the bear, and I'm using tear and tape here as well. I find it easier to just add tear and tape to the back of the bear, and then you can just stick your trees wherever you would like. It sort of just holds it there all perfectly. We're also going to add some dimensionals to the bear to pop that bear up off the card. And our sentiment piece is actually going to be glued with liquid glue just in the center where the bear is, because the bear is popped up, so you don't want to add extra dimension there. There's already enough dimension on the card, both under the Mossy Meadow cardstock and the bear. Alright, so I really love the colour combo of this, but you could certainly make it a little bit more funky with some bright, happy colours as well. I always try and do at least a couple of Christmas cards in really bright, bold colours. I think they always look good, but I'm also a very traditionalist with Christmas, so I like my traditional colours as well. So making sure that there are plenty of dimensionals on this, because there's that texture of that crumb cake card base. You really want to make sure that it's secured down and doesn't fall off your card, especially if you're going to mail it. So once we have these in place, I can add my sentiment, and then we're going to add dimensionals to the Mossy Meadow piece and secure it down onto the card base. And of course I couldn't stop just there. We want to add some more embellishments to this card, and I had the perfect embellishments from the mini catalogue. There are red and green adhesive backed pearls. Now it's a little misleading the red and green adhesive back pearls, because although there are red and green in there, there's also gold and silver, so it works really well for your metallic Christmas cards as well. Now, like I've said here, I'm using a ton of dimensionals. You can please yourself. I always find, because I do post my cards and I do sell my cards as well, I want to make sure that they have very good strong adhesive to make sure that they don't fall apart. So and I'd like people to be able to keep the card as well. So there we have it. Such a simple card. Like I said, I'd love to see you join in this week's challenge. Create a Christmas card using a stamp set that is not a Christmas stamp set. So you could create anything. You can always use a Christmas stamp set for the sentiment, but the focal piece needs to be nothing Christmas-wise. Alright, thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's card. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, and I'd love it if you hit subscribe. If you have a question or a comment for me, please leave it in the below comments. And don't forget to go over and check out all the dimensions over on my blog. And if you're in need of any of the supplies, you can purchase in my online store. Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye-bye.